Yo, what's up, nerds? It's MTG Man, and today I'm gonna be showing off my Outlaw deck. I think I'm gonna build. This is kind of a budget deck. It's about $100 market value. I just thought it was really cool. It's kind of this weird mashup of Grand Larceny and Most Wanted. So let me just show it off. So we played Don Andres, the Renegade, right? Now I've shown you off a deck tech with this before, blah blah blah. So each creature you control but don't own gets +2/+2, has Menace, Death Touch, and is a pirate. So pirates are also counted as outlaws. So all the creatures you steal are also going to be outlaws and gain benefits from outlaw abilities, whatever. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell you don't own, you create 2 trap treasure tokens. So he's just value all around, right? Now we're going to be taking a Viscera Seer. If we have things that are going to steal our opponent's creatures, sometimes it's better for us to just sacrifice them instead of giving them back. It's just more value. Grenzo, Havoc Razor. So when a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you can either goad a creature that player controls or exile the top card of their library. And until end of turn, you can cast it and spend mana as though it was mana of any color, which is ways to trigger Don Andreas and to get more creatures. Valki, God of Lies. Each opponent reveals their hand. You exile a creature, and you can pay X to have it turn into one of those creatures. Or on the other side, it's Tibalt Cosmic Impostor, and you'll be able to cast those creatures. So it's just cool. It's good options. Vial Smasher, Gleeful, Grenadier. When an outlaw enters, it deals 1 damage to target opponent. I wish it was 1 damage to each opponent. Alright, I feel like it's definitely not as much damage as it could be. However, everything is an outlaw. So, you know, casting your opponent's shit, that's an outlaw. Blah, blah, blah. It's just some consistent damage. Charred Graverobber. When it enters the battlefield, you return an outlaw card from your graveyard to your hand. So the deck plays mostly outlaws, so there's a lot of things to get back. And then you can escape to have it come back. Kellogg, Dangerous Mind. When it attacks, you create a treasure. You stack 5 treasures to gain control of a creature for as long as you control Kellogg. So it's a way to steal stuff, which will get pumped by Don Andreas. And when you cast non-creature spells that your opponents have, Don Andreas will give you 2 treasures. So Kellogg attacks once, and you get 2 Don triggers, and you can steal basically whatever creature you want. Laughing Jasper, Flint. So creatures you don't own are mercenaries in addition to their other types. So in case you don't have Don Andreas, this will still make them outlaws. And at the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top X cards of target opponent's library, where X is the number of outlaws you control. Until end of turn, you can cast spells from among them, blah blah blah. So this is a way to cast more spells that'll benefit with Don Andres. And then also, it can technically, if you have 10 outlaws, that puts your opponent on a 10-turn clock, because they're just going to keep having cards exiled until they have nothing in their deck. I guess it's more like a 9-turn clock minimum. But it's pretty good. Nashi, Moon Sage's Scion. Now, I don't believe ninjas count as outlaws. However, she can let you cast spells from the top of your opponent's library. So, it's just more options, I guess, and more ways to cash it. Child, Betrayer of Keldor. So, she deals damage to a player. That player creates that many 1/1 red survivors. Survivors can't attack you, and they can't block you. So that's cool, it's whatever. And then when she dies, you gain control of all survivors, which when you get them, because of Dawn, they're going to have +2/+2, be pirates, have menace, and death touch. So you get a board full of 3/3s for free, just when she dies. So I just thought it was a good option to help you build up a board state. Blightwing Bandit. When you cast your first spell during each opponent's turn, look at the top card of that player's library and exile it face down, and then you can play it. Just more options. It's also a rogue, which counts as an outlaw. Captivating Crew can steal things, counts as an outlaw. Draugr Necromancer. The deck doesn't play Snowlands, so you're not going to be able to fully benefit off the ability. However, if an opponent's creature dies, they exile it, so it's out of the graveyard. They can't reanimate it, which is good. And then being able to recast it, as long as you have the colors, it's a 3-color deck, so there's a good chance you're gonna have the color. Gonti, Lord of Luxury. You look at the top 4 of target opponent's library, and you can choose one and cast it on a future turn. It's just more ways to steal shit, and he's a rogue. Gray Water's Fixer. Each outlaw card in your graveyard has Encore X, where X is its mana value. So you'll get to pay X, create, I think... I need to read Encore. For each opponent, you create a token copy of that creature, and that token copy attacks that opponent this turn if able. So getting like 3 Gonti triggers is good. You'll get 3 Vulture. Well, I guess they'll have to be sacrificed because of... Yeah. So technically you have to sacrifice the tokens because they're legendary, but it's fine. It's whatever. You're still getting cool triggers. Hellspur, Posse Boss. So your outlaws have haste, which is good, and it creates mercenaries, which are outlaws, when it enters the battlefield. Again, being able to cast it with Encore to get another 6 mercenaries, pretty solid. Hostage Taker, when it enters the battlefield, you exile another target creature or artifact until it leaves the battlefield, and then you can cast it for as long as it remains exiled. Ways to cast your opponent's creatures. Even if you're not getting full value off of it, if you do Encore it, you'll still remove 3 things for the turn, which is it's fine. It'll let you get into attack. Outlaw Stitcher. It creates a zombie, and then you put 2 +1/+1 counters on that token for each spell you've cast this turn other than the first. Theoretically, you'll be able to cast some of your opponent's spells, so you're not going to be running out. Ramirez de Pietro, Pillager. So it enters, you lose 2, create 2 treasure tokens, so it just makes it easier for you to cast your opponent's spells. Then whenever 1 or more pirates you control deal combat damage, reminder, all of your stolen creatures are pirates. To a player, you exile the top card of that player's library, and you can cast it for as long as it remains exiled. So it's just more options. Sower of Temptation, it's a way to gain control of a creature. Beguiler of Wills, another way to gain control of a creature. And you're going to have a good number of creatures on the battlefield, so you'll basically be able to steal whatever you want. Coercive Recruiter, when it or another pirate, all stolen creatures or pirates, enter the battlefield, you gain control of target creature until end of turn. You untap it, and it becomes a pirate until end of turn. So it just creates more value. You're stealing more shit, getting in for more damage. Mezzio Mugger has Blitz 3. When it attacks, you exile the top card of each player's library, and you can play those cards this turn and spend mana as though it was mana of any color. So it's just a rogue, which counts as an outlaw. It just gives you more options to cast your opponent's shit. Turgid, God of Fright. This one I wasn't too sure about, because I don't think the deck does enough discarding and sacrificing. However, if your opponent's doing any of their own discarding or sacrificing, getting to steal their shit, and then having that shit get +2/+2 death touch and menace is pretty good. Zara, Renegade Recruiter. So when she attacks, you get to steal a creature from your opponent's hand. It'll attack, and then it gets returned to their hand at the beginning of the next end step. However, if you sack it with Viscera Seer, something like that, and it's gonna get +2/+2, so it's gonna get big. Roil Elemental. Whenever a land enters under your control, you can gain control of target creature as long as you control Roil Elemental. Just more stealing option. Agent of Treachery lets you steal something. It's a rogue, so it's an outlaw. And then at the beginning of your upkeep or end step, if you control 3 or more permanents you don't own, you draw 3 cards. So it'll just keep your hand full, and you get more benefit from stealing shit. Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Dimir Signet, Izzet Signet, Rakdos Signet, Talisman of Creativity, Talisman of Dominance, Talisman of Indulgence. We have the full Talisman, we have the full Signet, so that's 8 ways to ramp. Siphon Insight is another way to steal cards from your opponent. Chaos Warp is a solid removal spell. Dead Before Sunrise gives your outlaws +1/+0, and then they can just deal damage equal their power to target creature. So this is kind of acting like a board wipe. See, the problem with this deck is you don't want a board wipe because it's so creature focused. So this is going to be a way to destroy a whole bunch of your opponent's shit without actually having the board wipe. Hurl Through Hell will exile a creature, and then until the end of your next turn you can cast it. Just another way to steal shit. Claim the Firstborn, another way to steal a creature. Reanimate is a way to steal a creature from a graveyard, and even though you didn't cast it, you're still going to get +2/+2 on it. Predator's Hour is another way to steal shit from your opponents. Back in Town will return X target outlaw creatures from your graveyard to the battlefield, and most of the creatures in the deck are outlaws. Painful Truths is just a 3-mana draw 3. It's not the greatest spell, but it's consistent and cheap. Palaka Predation is it's a MVFC, so it's gonna be a land if you need a land, and if not, it's a way to make your opponent discard a card, which does synergize with Terragrid. Seize the Spotlight, so we either gain control of a creature target player controls until end of turn, or they let you draw a card and create a treasure. So here's the thing, in this deck, your opponent probably doesn't want to give you creatures, because even if they give you a 1/1, right? They give you a 1/1, it's now a 3/3 Death Touch Menace, right? So they either have to take that extra damage, or give you a card and give you a treasure. So they really don't like either option, especially in this deck. Windfall synergizes with Terragrid, and it's just a good option to keep your hand open. Arcane Heist, so you can cast an instant sorcery from an opponent's graveyard without paying its mana cost. Definitely a good amount of value. And if you cipher it onto a creature, when that creature deals combat damage to a player, you'll get to recast it for free. So when you cast it the first time, you'll create 2 treasures with Don Andreas, and then if you swing in and deal the damage, you'll cast it again. Well, you'll cast another opponent's spell. So basically, the 4 mana to cast Arcane Heist is covered, which is pretty good. Lidless Gaze, so you exile the top card of each player's library. Till the end of your next turn, you can play those cards, and it has a flashback cost if you need to play it again late game. Tempted by the Auric, for each opponent, you can gain control of up to 1 target creature or planeswalker with mana value 3 or less. Doesn't seem like a lot, alright, and the mana cost seems like a lot. However, stealing 3 creatures, we're just going to say you stole 3 3-mana creatures. That's 9 mana worth of creatures on your field, and then +2/+2 Menace Death Touch. It's going to be better than it seems. Call for Aid, so you gain control of all creatures target opponent controls, untap them, and they can't attack the player that they came from. But still, this could definitely take your other 2 opponents out of the game. And if your opponent doesn't have some sort of, option, they're fucked. Mass Mutiny is another way to steal your opponent's creatures. Song Mad Treachery steals a creature, but it can also be a land if you need a land. Mob Rule is basically the best way to mass steal shit. Subjugate the Hobbits, so you gain control of each non-commander creature with mana value 3 or less. This is like a better, worse Tempted by the Auric. So it's a permanent ability, so you could just take your opponent's board for all we know. It could be really good. It really depends on the situation. Fevered Suspicion, for each opponent, you exile from the top of their library until they reach a non-land card, and you can cast any number of those without paying their mana costs, and then you can do it again on the next turn. If you then cast all 3 spells, right, and then have it rebound and cast all 3 spells again, you'll create a total of 12 treasure with Don Andres, so you've more or less paid for the spell by itself. Heartless Conscription exiles all creatures, and then you can play those creatures, and mana can be spent as though it's mana of any color. It's just another way to steal shit, and it's a board wipe. Like, technically, you don't want to board wipe your own shit, but it's fine. Insurrection steals all creatures. This is basically, you win the game. If you have this and Don Andres out, you probably won. Rags is an okay board wipe that'll probably miss most of your stuff. And Riches is going to let you take control of 3 different creatures. Even if your opponent each gives you a 1/1, you still have like 3 3/3s or whatever. It's like it's okay. Share the Spoils will let you cast your opponent's spells. Keep in mind, it'll also let your opponents cast your opponent's spells, but I think it'll generally just speed up the game, and it does what you're looking for. Tribute to Hirobi. So, on the first 2 turns, each opponent creates a 1/1 Black Rat Rogue. And then on turn 3, you exile it, return to the battlefield transformed, which will let you gain control of all rats. So, let's just say here, each opponent doesn't have anything to do with those rats, right? And they keep them. So, 3 opponents times 2 rats, right? Total, so that's 6. and then the rats come to your field, right? And then they get +2/+2. So that just gives you 18 power for 2 mana. Sure, you have to wait 3 turns, but I mean, I would say it's fair enough. And then it's also a 3/3 that can draw you cards. So I would say it's pretty solid. At knife point, we'll give your outlaws first strike on your turn, which is good because they already have menace and death touch. We all know death touch and first strike is probably the best ability combo, at least that I can think of. And then whenever you commit a crime, create a 1/1 red mercenary once per turn. There's only so many ways to commit crimes in this deck. However, it's just another option. Cutting Rhetoric is another way to steal your opponent's cards. King Narfi's Betrayal steals your opponent's creatures. So it's just more ways to get your opponent's creatures out. They're going to be big, blah, blah, blah. Rakish Crew is going to create you a mercenary, and when an outlaw you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life. It's just another way to burn through your opponents. I never really noticed on this card, Tiny Bones looks kind of tall. Not like super tall, but like I expect him to be like a lot shorter. It's just giving you more options. Discreet Retreat. So it's going to let you spend mana to cast outlaw spells. So it's only really good in so many situations. However, it's also going to draw you cards when you cast outlaw spells. I don't believe... Yeah, so Don Andres, they won't be a pirate while you're casting them, so you're not going to get to draw. But it's still just another option to get out creatures. Double Down, whenever you cast an outlaw spell, copy it. It's just going to copy all of your creatures, more or less. It's pretty solid. The Ruinous Powers will let you cast more of your opponent's spells, and will burn them out as you do so. Land-wise, we're playing Canyon Slow, Command Tower, of course, Darkwater Catacombs, Exotic Orchard, a good way to produce mana of your opponent's colors if you need to use said opponent's colors to cast their spells. Foreboding Ruins, Frostboil Snarl, Gyre Reach Sanitarium, can trigger Turgid, it's just another way to get cards. Island, Mountain, Rixmedi, another way to trigger Turgid. Smoldering Marsh, Swamps, Temple of Epiphany, Temple of Malice, and Azandra's Lounge, just for color fixing, you know, you gotta, whatever. So, market price, $99. If you notice, it says missing price. It's missing the Island, Mountain, and Swamp, because it auto-filled to use the new ones. So, if we were to go for a test hand, we would mulligan that. Wow. This deck is a little bit heavy, I'm going to be real. So we probably go Zandra's Lounge, tapped. Temple of Malice, tapped. Scry. I think we would put... Can we... Oh, okay. We'll just say that put Swamp to the bottom. And then we draw. Probably Darkwater. No, we want to get Snarl out tapped, and then Darkwater Catacombs, and then I think probably. So we could either play Lidless Gaze now, so that we'll have opponent stuff to cast for the next turn. I'd probably go out with Don Andres. At this point, go for, I guess, Jasper as well. Probably tap like this. And then claim the Firstborn. Swing in with Andres and claim the Firstborn. Go for a Mountain. We're going to go Lidless Gauge. We're going to say we cantripped with one of those spells. Drew a card, created 2 treasure. It's really hard to do this without having an opponent's deck to, like, show what we got. Like, because there's no way of knowing. But that's how the deck would work. It is a little bit on the heavy side with, like, a 3.74. However, that's kind of the nature of stealing shit. You pay the price. Anywho, it's been MTG, man. Let me know what decks you're looking for next. And I'll see you later. Peace.